I don't know that we'll see a pass here as they go.
A deep dive on the brakes. Here comes the 680 to the inside.
By 7 on the second. I can't believe what we just saw.
For the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League, season number 3 of 2020 has taken us to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, and all the way out to the West Coast at Sonoma, California. This week for round number 3, we will go all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to United Kingdom and Silverstone Circuit. This track was originally constructed in 1950 off a Royal Air Force base, used in World War II, and then was eventually converted where one of the first ever Grand Prix was held for Formula One. Over a half a century later, we return here in virtual form for the DC region SCCA iRacing League, round number 3 of season 3. Welcome to Sim TV. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Finney and DeCuna tonight for a 60-minute endurance race with homologated GT3 machinery. Finney, it's a small field tonight, but as we know, endurance racing is not about how many cars are on track, but the quality of racing that happens once the green flag is dropped. And this is at a racetrack that we've never broadcasted before here on Sim TV, so there's a lot of unknowns coming in tonight, not only about how this track will race, especially with this few cars, but about the fuel mileage and strategy that will come with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we have technically done streams at Silverstone in the past, quite a few streams actually, at the old layout, the pre-2012 layout, before they moved the front straightaway to where it is currently after Club, and then redoing what's now the first sector. The rest of the track they pretty much left untouched. They just paved it and called it a new. And this track, again, with especially the work that they did in iRacing, it looks absolutely beautiful everywhere around the track with the new asphalt down, but definitely looking to finally seeing a race at this newer circuit, which I and you also personally like a little bit more than the older circuit.
Yeah, this racetrack, I think, is a big improvement on what was here prior. Again, you see in the top right-hand corner, constructed originally in 1950 off of an Air Force base, and a lot of the runways that used to make up this facility are no longer, Finney. They've been sort of changed quite a bit over the half century and more that Formula One racing and sports car racing has been here. But qualifying is already underway for the race this evening, and the fastest laps are on the left-hand side of the screen. And you're going to see that Thomas Layton is up at the top of the board, relatively uncontested, without the Audi that we were expecting to see this week after the amazing race they had at Sonoma. Layton right now 0.8 of a second up on Mark Shrivastava, who was the winner from the 2 races at Sonoma. So Shrivastava going to be good tonight, but as he goes a little bit quicker, a 2:8.882, and that's the best lap that he has run here. But 30 seconds left in qualifying, only 13 cars here, Phineas. This is going to change things up. I don't think we're expecting a frantic start here. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on this race tonight for the drivers in the field. So I think there's a lot to be said about taking it easy and not getting yourself into trouble, because you're going to have a long race, 60 minutes, just to out-engineer people in the pits and outmaneuver them on the track.
Yeah, and I think really the big thing is going to be making sure to not make a mistake. And even looking at the lap times, they're not too terribly far off from one another. In fact, the entire top 10 is within 2.5 seconds, and even then, although at the top it's significantly quite a bit more spread out, with Thomas Layton having a 2:01 to Shrivastava's 2:08, so 7/10 between just our first two runners.
There's Colin Daner in the number 6 car right now as he heads down into turn number 1. Car splits, relatively unimaginative this week. We've got a whole lot of Ferraris, a whole lot of BMWs, and we have one Mercedes AMG GT3. That's driven by Francois Brou, who sits 3rd on timing and scoring. And of course, Colin Daner in the number 6 car, as always, with the very stylish helmet that makes everybody uncomfortable as he works their way around. He's 8th right now with the best time of a 2:02.177. So Daner will start just shy of midfield, back in 8th place out of the 13 that are here. We have a fairly wide split in times from first to last here. Thomas Layton back to Don Manning, 5.9 seconds here, Finney. This racetrack is about 2 minutes around, so that's a fairly significant differential from front to back as we see our entrants here on the top of the screen. Layton, Shrivastava, Brou, Griffith, and Kessel, your top 5. Greg Obadia in the Marlboro number 66. Red and white colors on that Ferrari. It's we've seen a lot of Marlboro cars here over the years. First time I think we've seen it on a car like this, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in general, the field's got some really good paint schemes all across the board. We were talking about it earlier. Everyone's really nailed the paint scheme game.
Harry Horning is here back in 12th. He's got a pretty good looking livery. Most of the rest of the field is already off the racetrack, so looks like qualifying will be complete. Thomas Layton will be your pole sitter for the third round of the season here, the DC SCCA iRacing League from Silverstone. So again, we only have 13 drivers, and I expect that we'll have a pretty good finishing rate here. I don't see a lot of people crashing out. This is a difficult place to actually wad up a car. There's a lot of runoff, and it's purposely built that way. But I think it's going to make for a pretty interesting race as we head down to the racetrack here, and we'll get rolling through our lineup in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the weather for this afternoon. 72 degrees in the air, 79 on the racetrack, a nice cool 56.7% humidity. Gusty winds, though, 14 miles an hour out of the southwest, and that could create some interesting headwinds on this very twisting and turning circuit.
Yeah, absolutely, especially depending on, which of the two, long straightaways that's going to actually technically three long straightaways that can definitely, either help you on entry or even just through some of the corners can definitely throw you off if you're not careful with that amount of wind.
So this is a big circuit, and it's about 5.9 kilometers around or something like that, 5.1. It's a long ways around. We have 13 cars, so everyone's going to get their own place to race this evening. I think everyone's going to have their own little section of racetrack. What you do with that section of racetrack, this is basically a time trial session. And this means that you're going to have plenty of room, and I don't think you're racing the cars tonight. I think there's more of an incentive to race the track, because if you race the track and you focus on your own lap times, you are going to beat the person in front of you as the field rolls off. So let's roll through our starting lineup here, because I don't think we have too long to do it. So on the front row this evening, it's going to be Thomas Layton in the number 7 and Mark Shrivastava in the number 87.
Yeah, lineup in behind them is going to be Francois Brew and then Chad Griffith, the lineup in 4th.
In row number 3, it's going to be Greg O'Beatty in the 66 and Andrew Kessel in the number 5 car.
Schickel and Colin Dean are going to line up 7th and 8th.
9th place Forrest Landy in the 4 and Robert Porter in the 136.
Daniel Gross, Harry Horning in 11th and 12th. As we take the green flag, the last man on the grid. We're not going to get to him as we go green here at Silverstone.
Yeah, that was Don Manning that will start last tonight in the 13th place position as we head through turn number 1. Thomas Layton pulling away here early so far. Harry Horning already to pit lane. Forrest Landy's around it already. We've gotten the 33 of Evan Schickel hard in the wall. And just like that, that race is over and Landy will get rolling, but we've already lost a couple of our cars. These all look like they were separate incidents, but here's a look. Schickel to the inside of Obania.
Yeah, I think he's got too much curving or just cold tires got loose, and the same exact thing for Landy in behind. He also just got loose through that first turn, which is very tricky if you're not careful.
Yeah, cold tires taking out a couple of our competitors here early, but Thomas Layton, I mentioned uncontested. I do think that he's going to really be able to take advantage of this relatively empty racetrack. Shrivastava is right behind him, 9/10 back, and really this is Mark's race to have. If he has the pace to run down Layton, he's going to have to show it here early. Otherwise, he's going to have to outsmart him, which is going to be pretty tricky to do on the fuel strategy.
Yeah, we'll see what Shrivastava is going to be up to. Again, he had 2 impressive wins back-to-back at Sonoma, so did a fantastic job there, and currently running in 2nd. Obviously, he's just the start of the race, but he can keep up with Layton. I think definitely has a shot of getting the win.
There's the 8 car, Daniel Gross, right behind Robert Porter's 136 as they head towards Maggots and Beckett's. This is the sweeping left and right-hand section. You might think this looks familiar. Well, this is basically the set of corners that Circuit of the Americas S's were designed on, of course, with a lot more elevation. You see Gross kind of wiggling and wobbling around as you just try to get a late apex in that corner. It's so easy to apex too early and kill your momentum out of here as you run down to Stowe.
Yeah, so he didn't get a great run off the corner, and that's going to be key, especially if you want to make a move into Stowe, which is going to be a very big passing opportunity if you can nail the run out of Beckett's. And unfortunately for that is not Landy in behind. That is
It's the Daniel Gross in the 8 car that's behind. Robert Porter leads the way there. So moving back up to Chad Griffith in the number 11. Not a driver that has been on our radar for very long in this series, but again started the race in 4th. He grabbed 1 spot up to 3rd. There's Andrew Kessel in a very beautiful yellow BMW Z4 tonight. In this car, in this paint scheme, this is a really nice looking combination.
Yeah, absolutely. And currently running fairly well up in 4th, trying to get a past the BMW ahead of him. That's Chad Griffith in the 3 that we were just looking at before. As they head through Sector 1, this is a very tight, twisty section. very slow and for a lot of drivers very monotonous, but if you can get through here at a decent rate of speed, you can definitely improve your lap time. You also lose a lot of time in this section as well.
Take a look at Francois Brou, who is in the only Mercedes-AMG GT3, and this is a car that typically is associated with being the best in the class, but it doesn't seem like this season that's the case. So Francois Brou is elected to go with a car that may be slower, or at least at the very least worse on fuel mileage than the BMWs and Ferraris around him, but sits 5th right now. Behind him, Obadia, Daner, Porter, Gross, and Don Manning, who started last, is up to 10th as he negotiated his way through those early incidents as he comes on through. So we'll see what his pace is like as we jump back to 4th place, because we do have a little bit of a group of cars beginning to form up here as they head through the first sector. And Kessel, actually this is actually on the backside of the course, Maggots and Beckett's. You know, what's interesting about this track fitting is how, I want to say symmetrical, but between Abbey and Kopp, so very similar corners that you take at both high speed, probably 4th to 5th gear, and they're both kind of sweeping right-handers, and there's a lot of similarities, and if you're not paying attention, you can kind of forget what side of the track you're on.
Yeah, indeed, and again, that's where the old start-finish straight used to be until they moved it to its current position. We were able to build nice, fancy pit garages there. The pit building, in fact, in general, was absolutely beautiful. You can tell that they definitely spent a lot of money and resources while they were doing it.
We're the final chicane here now as Francois Brou sizes up Andrew Kessel, and Brou out-qualified Kessel, so I wouldn't think it'd be a huge surprise for him to come back by, but trying to keep the Mercedes nice and tidy. It's definitely a big, heavy boat in comparison. I mean, not that the Z4 is a light car by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly the Ferrari behind him might be a little bit more nimble. That's Greg Obadia, a little bit wide at corner exit through Abbey, but now takes a run down to this first sector, which I think is a spectacular view from the sky here as they head on through.
Yeah, and Kessel went through turn 1, caught a little bit of grass, and got a little bit loose as well. He was able to save it, so it wasn't too dramatic for that 5 car. But again, this is what we're talking about too, especially over the course of this hour, is not making a mistake, because there are a lot of chances to make a mistake in some of the corners. You can easily outbrake yourself or just get too much corner and you got to slow down, or worse, you can get sideways. So that's going to be, I think, the big thing, especially considering how close 3rd through, I think, through 6th or 7th position are on the track. You can see them flowing through. I'm trying to remember what corner name that is.
Luffield through here, and that's Colin Daner back in 7th, who's at the tail of this little train. Then it's Obadia, Brou, Kessel, and then Griffith going from 7th up to 3rd. So it's a pretty decent grouping of cars. Here's Obadia stepping out to driver's right on Francois Brou, who seemed like he was struggling through that more transient section here at Silverstone. Now tracking out of Copps as they run down to Maggots and Beckett's, and Obadia's got Colin Daner to deal with as they run now through the sweeping high-speed corners, and having a nimble car through here is very important. Look at Obadia, big slide through Maggots and Beckett's, hangs on Daner over the curbs, touches the back of Obadia, turns him around.
Oh no, and Obadia flying around.
And also behind them, Robert Porter in the 136 has also gone for a spin. But that was just Obadia making a mistake on entry, and Colin Daner getting a really solid entry, just didn't have time to back it down, and just ran into the back of the 66. Probably draw ire from stewards, but Obadia goes for a spin, and then it was Robert Porter in behind that just got too much curb on driver's right. He went around for his own harmless spin, kept the motor turning forward at the very least.
And going back live, looking back at the battle for 3rd, that still has not died down, even though we've lost 2 competitors closely out of that race. Griffith still ahead of Kessel over Brou, but Kessel starting to get closer and closer to Chad Griffith up ahead.
Yeah, looking at their lap times, last time through, Kessel ran a 2:03.592, which was his best lap of the day. Of course, not recorded because it was an off-track there, which dirtied the lap for the timing and scoring purposes, but he is closing up on Griffith, who is about half a second off his best time of the day, which is a 2:03.465, which is only a 10th better than Kessel just ran. So I think Griffith is definitely falling off the pace. That's going to bring Kessel in. We're going to have a BMW fight for 3rd place.
Yeah, nothing really too interesting going on with our leaders up ahead. Layton's ahead of Sharosrova by over 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. And the battle we're looking at now, they're 8.5 seconds behind our leaders.
Tracking out to complete our 4th lap of the race, and Thomas Layton is pulling away, and as we mentioned, his competition really not here as much as we would have expected.
One battle going on between Don Manning and Robert Porter. They're almost side by side coming out of left field.
Yeah, and for Robert Porter, remember, he just had that big spin a little while ago, and he's behind Don Manning, who started last in this race. So Porter should be able to make fairly quick work of Manning here, but you have to be careful. See, Manning takes it real tight, and Porter's going to run out wide on corner X. I believe this is through Cops here.
Yep, man. You got to be very careful running out through Cops because you can easily get slowed down if you run too wide, but Porter just going to keep it on the track enough to get around, and we'll drive on by. For third place, Chad Griffith in the blue CNX BMW Z4 has the bright yellow Z4 of Andrew Kessel behind him as they head now towards the final chicane, and this is a very important section to build speed onto the front straightaway, and Kessel's been really solid, nice and tidy to the left, nice and tidy to the right, a little bit tighter than Griffith, and gets a great run out of the corner. Yeah, it's a fantastic run as they go through club and back onto the front straightaway. Kessel's going to run out a little bit wide. Let's see here. If he tries the size of a move through turn one, he's going to have a look here. Does he dive? He does not, but he forces Griffith out wide. Yeah, it scared Griffith enough. That's going to leave Kessel some space on driver's right. He's not going to take it. Now he goes to the inside as Griffith is going to run side by side with him into the right-hander. Going to have to give that up, but Francois Bruce saw an opportunity, took the dive, and backed out last second. Realized that might not have been a safe situation to put the car. So he backs out Griffith to fourth, Brew back to fifth, and Colin Daner up to sixth. Now, does he have any damage from the collision with Obadia? Doesn't look like it. He got away with it. Yeah, speaking of Obadia, it looks like he's called it a night. He's left the server and retired, so we'll finish back in 12th, leaving 11 drivers still on the track. Don Manning has just gone around. That is day over for him, and this is an interesting place. Where is this on track? Turn 2, off of turn 2. He went way off, and yeah, what a weird place to go off at Silverstone. And that's what I was talking about, is you see him work through turn 2 here. He's going to just get a little bit too aggressive, get some grass, and around he goes. And didn't get a chance to lock the brakes up either, and just went straight into the tire barrier. That will mean his day is effectively over. You take a look at this car. Francois Brew and Daner are about to go at it through Maggots and Beckett. Daner almost went side by side through there, and this is a really tough section to go side by side. We did see Daner get into Obadia through this section. Look how much better he is through the opening part of that, but he loses time on exit as Obadia is going to use the torque in that big AMG to pull away on the straight. The Ferrari not as quick in a straight line, a bit more slippery than the big tank of a Mercedes, but he's going to use the slipstream now as he gets in the draft of this refrigerator-shaped German engineering platform. Yeah, that's what I can't help to believe is, you know, the Mercedes, I would think, is probably the worst out of all the machinery here. I think all the other cars, because this is a very flowing circuit, a lot of high downforce. You see Daner pull off the track, into the pits he goes. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a penalty or a scheduled stop. Again, drivers are going to try to make it the entire 60 minutes on one tank of fuel, and I do think it's possible, as Daner's going to come on in, and we'll see what situation is here. I have to believe that it's actual stop, because I can't imagine he's accumulated 30 incidents to get a drive-through. No, I don't think we have a live steward tonight either, so that wouldn't be a manual penalty either. But going back to Don Manning, you see the open and exposed engine compartment of that car right here. I mean, that's not getting you the greatest aerodynamic efficiency, and it's not going to be a whole lot of fun to drive this car, and I imagine as he heads to pit lane, that'll probably be it for the number 92 car tonight. Yeah, we'll see. Battle starting to heat up for fourth place. Chad Griffith not done yet. He's got Francois Brew behind him, and Francois got a pretty good run through sector 1. Not enough to get by, but still you can see he's closed up significantly to the back of that 11 car. Yeah, and Griffith is sort of surprising me. He's definitely dropped off the pace. A 2:04.7 last time by is really slow. I think that he's either burned the rear tires off that car somehow, or you see Kessel going for a bit of an off-track excursion. That was a big mistake, and he's going to lose a lot of time as here comes Griffith with a big run. Yeah, I'm not sure if Griffith is going to be able to catch him. No, he's going to have to sit behind, but just, as you're saying, he's lost a lot of time in general here. So now Griffith's going to try to build a run back on him, and this is essentially Max Beckett. You're going to be running single file, but if Griffith can time the run, he could have a shot of getting back at Griffith in Stowe. Back left and right, and setting yourself up for the run down to Stowe, and Brew going to, again, use the torque in that Mercedes, but I think the Mercedes and the Z4 are a lot more similar than the Ferrari of Colin Daner that was chasing Brew last lap, and you're going to see now Brew should be able to close up a little bit on the Z4. But the Zs are pretty good through the corners here, Fanny. They're a little bit better on the brakes as well than the Mercedes, so Griffith should be able to build a little bit of a gap here, but Brew is going to keep it within 2 car lengths as they head down to the chicane. can see in a lot of corners we're running out a lot wider than the Z4 as he gets really deep on the brakes, almost into the back of Griffith, as Kessel also didn't have too terribly good of a run here through club.
There's a lot of really gnarly sausage curbing around here, the big bright red concrete curbs on apexes, and you do not want to get on them. Some tracks you can get away with using them, Monza, Imola, sure, not here. They will launch your car into the air. They are not fun. Forrest Landy, he's around. Not a single car incident tonight, especially with the Ferraris.
Yeah, indeed, it's out of stow. So I think this might be just a textbook incident here.
On the brakes. Get the car rotated in. He's going to grab the grass again on corner apex. Guy's getting a little bit greedy, and this is where I have to sort of roll my eyes a little bit because thinking back to my discussions and my perusing on the forums video, I think if the curbing did its job correctly in the sim, we wouldn't have drivers using that much of it. But again, going to claim another car, and Landy will hit pit lane.
And I was talking about it earlier too, because a lot of the corners around here, just the way that they are very inviting for trying, cut them just to get a little bit more time through them.
Or tracking out as well. I mean, you're going to see Kessel, you see him go 2 tires over the curbing. In a real car, you probably wouldn't do that a whole lot because it would be really uncomfortable and potentially dangerous because those are fairly sizable curbs out there, and you wouldn't want to ride them on a straightaway just for the heck of it. You might as well tighten your line up by about a foot and stay off of them. Again, in the sim, not as consequential. So as you're right, Van, you're going to use a lot more curbing here in the sim than you would in real life. Colin Daner back out of the pits. That was a 40.7 second stop, really long. Don Manning is back on track. Forrest Landy has called it a day in the number 4 car. So we are now down to, what, 10 cars running?
Yep, 10 cars running, and I just heard Jack Griffith come over the radio that it's going to be really tight on fuel.
Yeah, I think we expected that. Yeah, I think we expected it to be a fuel mileage situation. You might play with the engine mappings a little bit, but I think for a lot of drivers, I think for Layton, he's got...
Kessel just went wide through club, completely botched the last few corners, and here comes Griffith back on him.
Yeah, good fight between these two. And as I was mentioning, I think Layton's got plenty of time to really do what he needs to do, but everyone else that's running as hard as they can, they might need to come and make a pit stop. I don't think that's a huge deal. I think a lot of people are going to do it. We've already seen a few hit pit lane. Daner and Manning are the ones I can think of.
And a lap car ahead of these guys, too. I think that's Don Manning.
Indeed it is. Out of the corner of my eye, yeah, it looked like Don Manning. Accelerating onto the straightaway, going to keep the car tight right here as you upshift, going to track out all the way to the edge of the white line. And now the run down to Brooklands and Luffield. This is another corner where you can really get aggressive with the apex here. You tuck it in real tight up and over. Can't really get yourself a cut course penalty there, so you're going to be as aggressive as possible.
And they're catching closer and closer to Don Manning, and I'm actually kind of curious. I think they might catch him in Maggots and Beckett's, which could lead to some interesting stuff happening. This is probably the worst part of the track to catch a lap car, because that section to get very much single file.
And again, this is all the battle for 3rd place right now. And I think you're right, they're going to catch him through Maggots and Beckett's, which is going to be really interesting to see. We'll look from up above as they enter the sequence. And if Kessel is thinking ahead, he'll try to back it off a little bit so that he doesn't catch him in the middle of it. But I don't think he had the foresight to do it. Manning is off the racetrack. He's going to come back on right in front of Kessel. He's going to slide out wide. Brew's coming on through right in front of Brew goes Don Manning, and Brew comes on through. That was a little bit tight.
Indeed, it was. Great reaction for Francois Brew, because Manning was pretty much right where you track out of Beckett, so was able to correct enough, and same thing with Chad Griffiths too. So
good work there by those drivers to avoid what could have been a pretty dangerous situation that did leave Kessel with a pretty sizable advantage over them in 3rd place as we work through our first quarter of this event. Out in front, though, Thomas Layton in the very brightly colored Ferrari 488. This car has just been a really interesting one over the course of its existence in the iRacing service. Started out generally pretty well favored. It had some weird dynamics when you trail braked it. Seemed like it was relatively unstable on cold tires, and it still is. But I think it's a pretty good middle ground. It's just okay everywhere, and it's not necessarily amazing at one particular thing, and it's not really amazing at any particular thing. It's just a good middle of the ground car, but Layton's been able to take it and run with it, as Shrivastava and the arguably quicker Z4 has not been able to keep up with him.
Yeah, he's actually fallen off. In fact, Kessel last time through put a faster time, albeit marginally faster than Shrivastava, but I think considering Kessel is dealing with a lap car, that time might be even quicker than what is currently listed.
Noticing pretty significant damage on the nose of this car, and I don't remember seeing Shrivastava get into anybody in particular, so that could be hurting the performance as well. I'm not seeing this car be quite as quick as we would have expected. His best time is still a full second off of Thomas Layton, and looking at the timing and scoring, given that the times that he's running, it makes sense that he's about 9 seconds back, but I can't imagine the aerodynamic damage is helping.
No, definitely not. It's not going to be doing him any favors. The lap before, too, he ran really slow. I was actually kind of curious to see if he would still run slower. Ran a 2:05.6 the last lap through, and he lost a lot of time on that to the leader.
Definitely peculiar. Wonder if that damage and the slow lap time had anything in common. But Kessel is about 9.5 seconds back from Shrivastava. And he actually ran a little bit quicker than Shrivastava, so I don't think over the course of the next 41 minutes, I don't think Kessel's out of a run for at least second place if he continues at this pace or quicker.
Yeah, you see, but he's going to have to start dealing with Francois Breu. Breu not out of the picture, still showing some muscle in that Mercedes AMG. Is essentially caught back up to Kessel. Kessel had a bit of a scare through turn 2. Got a bit of grass, and he had to wrestle this thing to keep it straight, but Breu's been putting in some solid times now. He's at the back of the 5.
Yeah, that time was about a half a second quicker. No, make that 0.7 of a second quicker. Oh, that's not even right. It's about a second and such change. 1.4 quicker for Breu that time than Kessel. Reeled him right in as they now head through the loop here. And I would have expected the Mercedes to be a more popular car. There's a lot of straightaway here at Silverstone fitting. I'm sort of surprised so many people went with the Ferrari and BMW.
Yeah. I think the problem is, and this is what makes Silverstone kind of interesting in a way, there are quite a few straights. In fact, I was saying there's 3. There's technically 4, really, when you count them out. There's 4 straightaways around here. The main straight, the Wellington straight after Sector 1 down to Luffield. Then you got the old pit straight, Jacobs, and then you got the hangar straight. So you can see you're actually missing one on the screen. Trying to map them all out. So you got 4 straight, so that's really where the power of the Mercedes can really come in. The torque that it provides can really come in. I think the problem, though, is the fact that there's also a lot of high downforce corners around this track, and that's where the Mercedes kind of ends up lacking, especially in comparison to the Z4 and even to the Ferrari.
I've always considered the Z4 to be a much better car in high downforce scenarios. It's a lot shorter, so it also seems to be a lot more nimble in the slower stuff as well. So it lacks slightly in the straight line performance. That's a lot better on the brakes, a lot better through the high speed corners, but the Mercedes just eats up time on the straightaways. Now 0.6 of a second between third place Kessel and Francois Breu, all fighting for the third step on the podium. Daniel Gross has had an incident. Oh, he's put it in the fence.
Yeah, trying to see where this is. I think this is Maggots and Beckett's. Indeed, it's on the exit of Beckett's.
Yep, and just already you see the car loading up. He's sort of chucking the car in. It was big understeer there, got out into the grass. And Silverstone does that a lot. They'll give you some curb. Just a light, I don't even know if he got the wall there, Finney. It was really close. But
yeah,
there's
really
a lot of sections where there's some runoff, and then it's grass again to kind of dissuade you from using the runoff. And it works really well, as you see there.
Last time by, Breu did not improve. Pretty much on pace with Kessel, and Shrivastava has been running really inconsistent lap times up ahead. His last 4 laps, the last lap he ran a 2:02.7, then it was a 2:05.1, a 2:03.1, and then a 2:05.6. So he's been kind of all over the place in second place, and it's cost him a lot of time. He's now over 11 seconds back from the leader.
And Breu, I think this fight's going to continue. He didn't really improve a lot. I think he ended up actually losing 1/10 of a second overall after that last lap, but he's still kind of chipping away at it. And with Kessel being so inconsistent, I think that could bring Breu right back into the fight here. So we have 3 retirements of the 13 cars that started this race. Landy, Obadia, and Schickel. Dominating the last driver running, he's 1 lap down up front. Layton by 12 seconds leads the field. Then Shrivastava in no man's land in the battle for third. We're watching here Kessel and Breu. Then 5 seconds back is Chad Griffith in the number 11. Then Porter, Gross, Horning, and Daner, the rest of the running order here at Silverstone for the DC Region SCCA iRacing League round number 3 of season 3.
Interested in seeing what happens happens with this battle between Brew and Kessel, because Kessel, I would definitely say, has probably been the more inconsistent between the two. He's made a decent amount of mistakes to the point where I think if Brew can start applying the pressure, we can definitely see this position trade. I don't think, though, that Brew is going to be able to just brute force on by Kessel.
So next week, we're actually going to head to the National Park of Speed, which will be Road America. And I'm really excited for that race. That's a very popular American road course in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And
yeah, now it looks really nice.
It does look really nice, so I'm excited to go there. And I also think it'll be the land of the Mercedes. If people are choosing the car based on how good they perceive it to be, I would think the Mercedes would be the car to have it, Road.
Yeah, absolutely. Considering, especially again, we're talking about just the high downforce cars. Not too many of them. There's a decent amount, but a lot of them are kind of medium to low speed corners.
It's very point and shoot in comparison to a place like Silverstone. So in that regard, I do think the Mercedes will be a popular car, but there's also the aspect of what do you know? And I think a lot of people, now that they've been driving the Z4, have taken a liking to it and sort of prefer it over these bigger and longer cars like the AMG and the R8.
Yeah, and I think that's also another key factor as you guys are talking about is just, what are you familiar with? Because not everyone's had seat time, I think, in all or even owns all the GT3 cars, so you're kind of left with what you don't necessarily want to jump to the best car if you feel more comfortable in the car you've been running. As I see, Francois Brew, his brakes, oh, never mind, I thought they were glowing. It was just the sun reflecting off the yellow brake pads that we noted last week.
Yeah, and again, you're not really generating a whole lot of brake heat here. It's generally a pretty fast circuit with a high average speed. Colin Daner going to go around for a loop in the number 6 car. And he has found his way off track, and that looks like it's at the exit of Stowe over here. Seen a couple cars have incidents here. Very similar incident. That is a carbon copy of what happened to, I think it was either Gross or was it Forrest Landy that spun over there earlier in the race. Landy.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Landy has pulled it off the track.
Kessel wide again, struggling here. Our battle for third continues. 35 minutes to go, 5 minutes shy of halfway. And so we go to Road America next week, and then we head to Suzuka, which is going to that'll be a very Z4 heavy racetrack. And then we head to Coda, which is a really interesting one. That's a track where I'm not really sure anybody knows what's best there. It's got a combination of everything: slow, fast, medium speed, high downforce corners, and high speed straightaways. And then Spa, very straight heavy, and we end up with Watkins Glen in many ways, which is very similar to this place. A lot of very fast, high downforce turns. So definitely an interesting mix of tracks the next couple weeks to round out our third season.
Nice list of circuits in general too, especially Spa. Can't wait to go there. It's probably one of my, I think a lot of people can attest this to being there, up there as one of their favorite tracks.
Which track was that I was sort of zoning out?
Spa?
Spa, yes. Spa's a pretty good track, but again, I'm really excited for Road America now that it's better to look at. Don Manning is going to hit pit lane here. And it was actually recorded as behind a little bit. I was behind just a little bit. So he had actually had an incident here. I'm not sure if this was, it's a spin.
Oh, no, it was a little bit more than that.
Is this, oh man, was that 6th place Robert Porter?
Yeah, so from the looks of it, it looks like this was a mistake on Manning's part. Ended up getting to the brakes on
right
the there.
Grass.
Yep, and went flying into Porter. And Porter took a lot of damage, also went over the curb as well.
You can see, watch Don Manning here. I'm sure we'll get a better shot of this as he comes down the hill. Gonna see right on driver's right there. He's gonna just clip the grass on the brakes and spins right into 6th place Robert Porter, and that is significant damage to that car. And he's gonna also jump the curb, slam the splitter back down on the pavement. And you can see how it's bowed up right here on the left front especially. So that is gonna certainly be hurting the performance of that car. Wrong place, wrong time for Robert Porter.
Yeah, I think he's just going to try to limp that car back home. Still running. He's running in 6th, so having a decent run, all things considered.
Yeah, that car's...
he's got Gross right in behind him, and I can imagine that Gross can be catching him at a pretty solid rate considering the damage to that splitter.
Yeah, that car in general is pretty balled up. I'm not sure that he'll enjoy driving it, even for the next couple minutes that'll take to get him to pit lane. Back to 3rd place, Andrew Kessel in the 5, Francois Brew in the 69. They continue to run about 4 to 5 car lengths apart. Kessel again, big understeer as he comes through the final chicane. It's going to bring Brew right up to him.
He really struggled in Club, and I'm not exactly sure why, but he's just not been nailing those final 2 corners that Brew's been, and even Griffith before was gaining a lot of time on Kessel, and even through turn 1. Look how much more Brew charged
into the first sector on the brakes, and Brew's going to charge this corner, try to get the big, heavy Mercedes slowed on down. Closes in within 5 car lengths. Kessel, now this is where the BMW loves to make corners with that very short wheelbase and pulls away slightly. Also, we did see Kessel jump the sausage curb in the final corner. You got to keep an eye on the aero bits on the lower right-hand side of that car to see if they've gotten any sort of damage. Looks like
so far
it's good.
So far, so good. But again, you can't quite rest your laurels on hitting it the same way every single time. You might hit it a little bit differently, and then you might actually get some damage. So you have to be careful and use that very sparingly.
Dom Manning has pulled his car off. He is done for the night. Colin Daner now the final driver running back in 9th place. And it looks like we've got some clouds over the circuit, and you can see it's sort of out of our view to the left, but you can see on the right side how much sunnier it is. And a track this big, fitting the swing from one side of the track to the other is going to be fairly large and could definitely impact the performance of the tire on one side of the track versus the other.
Yeah, currently got some clouds through Cops and Woodcock, and even Lovefield for that matter. The rest of the track's still in the sun, but I'd imagine that the clouds are going to slowly travel over the rest of the track, cooling it down.
Yeah, well, actually, take one more look here. The wind still over 10 miles an hour should blow that out of the way relatively quickly. Up front, Thomas Layton continues to lead, and he has led all 15 of the laps that we have completed. I should say 14 of the laps that we've completed. And continues to run lap times that are on the order of tenths faster. Travasova, the second quickest driver on track. You see him, he's 14 seconds back in 2nd place. And very much a land of his own right now.
Yeah, and definitely tidied up the laps a little bit too. He's been consistently running in the 202s and even low 203s. So he's been pulling away from this battle that we've been watching pretty much all race. This battle for 3rd position between Kessel, Brew, and a few others earlier on. But now it's just 2 of them that remain. You see Brew again really charged deep into Village here, but not able to get something. So if you're Brew, what do you do different? Because clearly what he's been doing so far hasn't quite worked out.
Well, I think you got to keep running tidy laps because Kessel is making mistakes. I do think Brew has got to focus a little bit more on the slow in, fast out method here. I'm not sure. We've seen him charging on the brakes a little bit. This car is so much of a pig through the corners. I don't think you should be trying to carry speed through there. I think you should be focusing solely on your exit speed. So really kind of braking in early and getting the car rotated so you can get as straight of a launch on exit as possible.
Yeah, and you see him there. He charged the corner right through Lovefield, but just lost it all on exit here.
Right, and then he spends the time on the straightaway closing the gap that he lost at the exit of the corner, which I think is sort of a shame because I think that car is definitely quick enough. And he's running fast enough laps. He ran quicker than Kessel last time through. I think if he just targets the exit a bit more, he should be able to close this gap to the 3rd place number 5 car. But again, you see him charging the corners a little bit, using a lot of front tire. Oh, that's Travasova in front of him. He's had an issue. He's spun the car out. 2nd place.
No.
He just had a big spin. He lost 10 seconds or so. And he got the wall too. This is at the exit of Maggots and Beckett's right here. We saw this early in the going with Don Manning. Caught the grass and spins, and he got a big chunk out of the tire wall. That's going to bring the 2nd place fight with Kessel and Brew right back to Travasova.
Yeah, and I think Travasova might even lose out here because again that was a really solid hit into the tire where his nose on. So you can imagine he's got some damage to potentially the engine and even other parts of that car. Already had pre-existing damage, but now this is essentially become now a 3-way battle for 2nd place.
And there's all 3 of those cars right now, and it's 25 seconds to Thomas Layton out front, and a whole 11 seconds back to 4th place Chad Griffith. But now the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place cars beginning to close in on each other. Travasova and the BMW. How damaged is that car? He lost about 11 seconds on this previous lap due to the spin, but will he lose more? The car looks like it took the hit pretty well. There's some splitter damage.
Kessel had a really poor run. I think this is the aero wash-off Travasova that might be hurting him a bit. As a Brew almost got him through Village, but wasn't able to get it done, so he's going to have a chance. But I think now with the Travasova ahead, I think Brew's got a solid chance of getting past Kessel because Kessel doesn't have clean air anymore.
Well, it's a distraction at the very least for Kessel. Another car to focus on, another car that he's trying to chase. Now, I do think that for the driver chasing, it's a little bit easier. I've always liked being the driver in control, basically. So if I'm chasing, I feel like I'm the one in control because I'm the one being the distraction. If I'm the lead car, I think it's a distraction to be watching the mirrors. And I think that's what Kessel has been doing. So maybe having Shrivastava out in front of him wouldn't be such a bad thing. Now, I'm curious what Shrivastava's lap time will be because he has actually extended the gap that he has back to Kessel.
Yeah, that is actually quite intriguing here. I actually also I'm just going to take a look myself at the speeds that these guys are running at the end of the straights to see if there's any difference in it.
We're going to know in a very short time here. We're heading down towards Stowe, and Shrivastava's differential on Kessel is about 1.7 seconds. It's a half a second back to Brew from there.
Yeah, actually, so the Shrivastava got up to 151 miles an hour. Kessel only got up to 152. So surprisingly, Shrivastava actually still's got some decent top-end speed on that car.
It also comes into setup. How much wing does Kessel have cranked into the car? You see a big curb jump there, and you can see the front tires sliding on that car as he tries to rotate the car in. And Shrivastava goes a 2:03.2. That's right back on pace where he was, and quicker than Kessel and Brew.
Yeah, it's actually quite impressive. I think you also got to count his stars too, that he didn't get more damage to that machine. As Brew charges the corner again,
this
pretty
is
hard.
He's been the best through that first corner, and he's gonna have a big lunge down here. He's gonna go for it. Big dive on the brakes to the inside of Kessel. He's gonna go through. Kessel's gonna try to cross over to driver's right, and now it's gonna be a left-hand corner. So try to tuck it back in and get a run onto the back straight, but he's not gonna be able to do it. What a pass there by Brew. That was from a long ways back, but got it done.
Yeah, textbook pass from Brew. They're not done yet. He's still got Kessel right in behind and potentially lining up for another pass down the Wellington Straight.
Kessel is in behind now, and these cars have been so comparable on pace, I don't really expect Brew to just drive away. So we should be able to see a continuation of this fight. Just rolls reverse now with the Mercedes leading and the Z4 chasing. We've already seen how big of a hole in the air that Mercedes punches. Look at Kessel kind of pinching the car off an exit. That cost him a lot of speed down the straightaways. We got Daniel Gross in pit lane, and I'm not sure that this is a scheduled start. It looks like it is. He's been on pit lane for 47 seconds.
Yeah, he came in by himself, so we'll see here.
Looks like he called it quits and jumped off the racetrack.
Oh yeah, he ended up leaving the server, so another one bites the dust.
Didn't start with a very strong field at the very least, but we're down to what I think is really the cream of the crop here. Layton, Shrivastava, Brew, Kessel. Oh, Brew's off! And so is Kessel. He followed him right off with him. It's like there's oil on the track out there. Couldn't make the corner, and both of them went for a big slide. And now a slowdown for Brew and for Kessel.
This is really awkward.
This is
between each other.
The slowest sports car race at Silverstone since 1950. As they run down to Stowe. And just a big mistake for both cars, and that's not something you see a lot. Typically, one driver will take advantage of the other's mistake.
Yeah, I think that's typically what they call, target fixation. You're so focused on the guy ahead of you, you start running a little bit similar to his lines, and if the guy ahead goes up, you might find yourself also going up.
Exactly.
So, that was not able to capitalize.
And it's great you brought that up, Finney, and target fixation. That's a big distraction that I think a lot of people, when they first start driving on track, have trouble with because you're not focused on the track as you should be. Your eyes should be focused on the apex of where you want the car to go. If you're focusing on the car in front of you and you're aiming for the car in front of you and he makes a mistake, you're naturally going to follow right with him. So that's a really interesting point that you bring up about target fixation. And that tells me that Kessel wasn't totally focused. Get your eyes back down to the apexes and focus on the track. But it's hard.
Because again, these are two different cars too, so you need to also keep in mind that you're going to be taking the corners a lot differently, a lot more different than Brew is, and even just being the car behind. So yeah, it's so let's see now here. I still think Kessel might have the faster car. Dives it pretty deep into Brooklands here.
Yeah, I agree. I think
he can try to get back on Brew.
I think his car is better over more of the lap than Brew's is, but I think now that Brew's got that massive Mercedes out front, it's going to be tricky to figure out how to get around him in a reasonable spot. Best place to pass cars is on corner entry, and if you're not faster than the guy in front of you to pull alongside on corner entry, you're not really going to have a realistic line, a realistic shot at grabbing the lead away. Now the run of Baggett and Baggett, you see Shrivastava got right back on pace, and also the guys behind him making mistakes certainly helped. Much tidier that time through.
Yeah, I'm sure both of them made sure to back the corner up just a little bit more so they don't have that happen again. Yeah, that cost them a lot of time, just 5 seconds in general from where they were running before. So even actually might be more than that. So you see the difference in line 2 with Brew charging more in entry. Kessel lining up for a late 8th. He's got a decent run out.
Brew looked like he was going to dive to pit lane there, but decided not to. And look at Kessel close on the brakes. He's been a lot more aggressive lately on the brakes than Francois Brew. We saw Brew charging before he got the pass done. Now he seems like he's backing the corners up a little bit. Now the run down on the front straightaway through Abbey. And speed's climbing well over 120, 130 miles an hour before you get down to this extraordinarily tight stadium section, sort of. And one of the tightest corners on the track, down to 38 miles an hour was what we saw Kessel slow down to while chasing Brew here.
Yeah, I think Kessel got a really good, much better run under that little hairpin there than Brew. But Brew's still ahead. Kessel close to the gap, and I think this is really, as we now started going to more of the high downforce corners, I think really where he starts to kind of lose out after he makes up some time through sector 1.
Now through Luffield, you hear the gear whine in this car as he throttles back up on corner exit, tracks out, and takes the run down towards Cops, and loses a lot of time to Brew through that sector.
Yeah, and then also through Cops as well. This is really... Oh, as Brew goes way down right, so does Kessel. Oh, did one of them get a slowdown? It's very easy to do so.
Brew went a little bit wide. He's way slow on entry. That backs Kessel up a bunch. That was a little bit hairy. And something tells me that Brew had at least a couple tenths of a second to slow down. Here's a look from up above. How far did he go off? And it's easy to do. Oh, that's pretty far off. And you see how much he pinched the exit was to avoid a slowdown. He might have gotten away with it because if you pinch the car back on like that, you typically can get away with it. Here's the run wide. And as long as you don't continue to accelerate, you can typically avoid having to serve that penalty.
Like you said, so I think he was able to avoid it, but anything might have just gone a little bit as Kessel goes a little bit wide out of stow. So, again, not able to capitalize on Brew's mistakes.
Yeah, one of the things we discussed, or we should have discussed at the beginning of the broadcast, was the track limits here. At a lot of tracks, you can use a little bit of the runoff, and it's not a big deal. You'll just get yourself an off track, which in this instance isn't a huge deal. There is, of course, an incident limit where you have to come down and serve a drive-through penalty. But here, they also police the off tracks on corner exit with slowdown penalties, and if you run out too wide and you don't back off the throttle, you will pick yourself up a slowdown, and it is not a fun thing to have to do when you're involved in a battle like this one.
Yeah, so we saw both of them again after having to awkwardly slow down the hangar straight, both trying to serve their slowdown. So, and I can imagine they want to do that again.
Up front, Thomas Layton continues in a flawless day for him.
30 seconds the gap between himself and Shrivastava, and again, this is really just by Layton not making a mistake. In fact, he has not run a time slower than a 2:03. Every single lap time he's put has been lower than that.
Watch this. This is a, sorry to interrupt you there, Finney, but this is just such a perfect line. Look at how tight he keeps it, right on the edge, doesn't even knock a blade of grass over as he comes on through. That is just a mark of a very experienced racer. Just perfection through Maggots and Beckett's that time through.
And it's got a lap car ahead. That's Harry Horning up ahead of him.
Late on the brakes goes Horning as Layton tries to set up a pass for the front straightaway. No real rush here.
Yeah, I think the big concern really with just passing the lap car at this point is just the fact that he hopes just the lap car doesn't wreck. And I'm taking himself also out of the race. You see Horning going to pull on slow, Layton going to go up the inside in turn 1.
Even then, you see how tidy he keeps it. He's really not pushing that hard right now. There's no reason for him to. I'm waiting for him to go through Maggots and Beckett's again so I can post it to r/oddly satisfying later. Have you ever seen that clip of the motorcycle rider going around the corner literally perfectly?
I don't think I have.
It's in slow motion, and it is the most satisfying thing you will ever lay your eyes on. It's just the motorcycle. He's banked in about 50, 60 degrees, and the tire flex. Like he's got the tire right on the crease between the rumble strip and the asphalt, and it is just the most amazing piece of slow motion footage out there, and truly deserved to be on r/oddly satisfying. But Layton again with a 31 second lead now. No real rush here. Just try to keep the car neat and tidy and in position to win this if he can last another 18 minutes like this.
running really good lap times back in behind him. Roscoe, again, no real chance of him making up that time back. 31 seconds between himself and Layton. He still has a chance of following more spots, and we saw him make that big mistake through Maggots and Beckett's that put him back closer to Broom Kessel more so than he would have liked.
Okay, there we go. This is someone can take this and put this on Reddit now and get a bunch of karma, but this is the most beautiful. Just watch. I mean, this is 2 laps in a row and just does not misplace a single tire. Look at this, right on the edge. One little pebble he knocked over on the way through and tucks it in just so elegantly. And this is just, when you're in a race car that is handling well and you're nailing the apexes like this, it just feels good. And I guarantee, even though Layton has had no real competition today, he's probably having a blast out there. He probably has a big smile under the virtual helmet that we can't see because he's very stone-faced looking as he works his way through his 21st lap.
I can't wait till they add the avatars, and that's going to be interesting to see what tools we have for that.
Yeah, so for those that aren't aware, iRacing coming this fall is adding the ability to customize your driver within a certain range of customization. I don't think it's going to be anything like your GTA Online
like
character.
Skyrim or,
But it's gonna be, there's gonna be some customization, some more skin tones to choose from, some different body types. I think will be really interesting, and presumably male and female as well, which I think is. I'm sort of surprised that this hasn't been a bigger issue in the 15 years iRacing existed. I'm sort of surprised this hasn't been. I don't want to say a higher priority because I don't think it really matters that much, but I'm sort of surprised that nobody's complained about this.
I forgot what game. There was one game where that was actually a bit of a concern, or not concern, but people are a bit annoyed by that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what game it was. It was a few years back too. So
yeah, I'm not sure that iRacing really has. I don't think anyone really expects them to focus on characters too much because they're behind a helmet all the time. But just on the principle of the thing, I think it's important that they get that supported.
Yeah, it's also gonna be nice not just have the same generic character model behind the helmet, especially when you can see because everyone else looks the same.
Yeah, it's really funny when we were going through an IndyCar race and you kept going from car to car, and it was the same guy, like just 20 clones.
And also, I just hope they improve just the way the face looks because he looks like dead inside.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's having a very good time, does he?
He just looks constantly stressed out.
What I think would be really funny is if they actually gave us a texture map for the head. And then you could just paint whatever you want, which I think would be better because then you could actually put your own face on the model. But obviously there would be an issue with that because it wouldn't necessarily line up with the features and all that. So it's an interesting discussion, I think, and I'm kind of curious to see what customization we'll have. I think it'll probably be more than what's required. I think it'll be probably relatively in depth. Be good enough. There's a little dust kicked up there by Layton through. I believe that is. You can never tell by looking at it, but I think that was through Abby there. So down into the loop now.
Yeah, he's got Colin Daner up ahead. Daner running in 7th place.
Daner's been sort of on his own for most of this race, and started back in 8th place and up to 7th. He's had a couple incidents today involving, one of them involving Rego Badia, who now sits 12th out of the race. They had a bit of a touch headed through Maggots and Beckett's. Daner now at risk of going a lap down to race leader Thomas Layton. The difference in lap time last time through was about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, and Daner's also the highest of the drivers that have made a trip on down the pit road. The entire top 6 have yet to come down pit road if they plan on it at all, as you got just over 14 minutes remaining left in the race.
If you're interested in keeping an eye on the lap time intervals and that sort of thing, you can head to simtvbroadcasting.com/timing, and you can get updated every 5 seconds. We push out data, and you can kind of keep up to date on who's running what time if you want to run your own strategies and play racing management simulator, what do they call that?
Which game? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Racing management simulator. What's the game?
Motorsport Manager?
That's the one. You can play Motorsport Manager and see when you'd want your driver to pit, but I would assume Layton's turned the engine map down and is probably saving enough fuel that he'll be good to the end. Mark Shrivastava, given the pit deltas we've had, I'm not even sure that... Oh, he seemed to run way wide there. I'm not sure that even with a pit stop he could catch Layton.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And I think at this point for Shiraz, it's just a matter of making sure that he just gets to the end of the race. That being said, Brew ran 0.6 of a second faster last lap through, so it's not completely over. Yeah, Brew's putting in some decent lap times and keeping Shiraz honest. So Mark can't entirely back out of the lap because Brew's still pushing. In fact, the gap between Brew and Kessel, the battle we've been looking at nearly the entire race, is now expanded to 5 seconds between them.
Well, really interesting looking at Francois Brew's last time, a 2:03.185. That's only about a tenth and a half shy of his best lap of the race. So that tells me that Brew's found something here. I think the car's lightening, the fuel's burning off, the car is kind of gaining some front grip and some front bias, and it's allowing him to turn in a little bit better and rotating better through the corners, and the tires are up to temp, and I think he's going to be in good shape to run down Travasova. He just needs a couple more tenths of a second if he wants to begin closing the gap, because Travasova's still a hair quicker as they came across the line that time through.
Oh man, he really chucked it hard down into turn one, kind of kicked up some dust.
It's cool looking. We'll take another look at it. Well, we got plenty of time here. Comes down into the corner, and again, there's a little bit of runoff on the inside of the corner, but just kick up a little bit of dust off the edge of the curbing and blaze on through, well over 100 miles an hour through that corner. About 12 minutes to go. Back up to the front, Thomas Layton. Not a scratch on this car, and I don't have a look at his incident count, but I'm willing to bet you it's 0. He has had very little off-track excursions so far tonight.
Yeah, that's always one thing. I completely understand why they don't let you see the incident limit of other drivers, but I really wish they did, because it'd be really convenient for seeing how close people are to the incident limit.
It would be nice. I wonder, I don't think that's something that they actively transmit through the SDK. I think it goes through the server. I don't think the iRacing SDK can output that, at least as it stands. I can know roughly when a driver gets an incident, and you can technically write a script to do your own tracking, but it's really rough. It's a really rough estimate. So all incidents, and this is a lot of people, this is a discussion I could talk about for hours, but a lot of people think that the server assesses incident points, and they get mad because they think netcode has something to do with it. It does not. All incidents are recorded client-side, which means that they are done on your local machine and don't have anything to do with the internet. The server makes its own prediction of the incidents, and that's basically it. But of course, the client eventually will communicate with the server and tell everybody what incidents you have. So what that means is that ATVO, which is our timing and scoring software that does all the data collection for us, it takes the server's guess at when a driver gets an incident. It's very inaccurate and is subject to netcode because it's just the guess. It's not the client's information. And I don't think there's any way to get the client's information in ATVO or through the SDK. There's a little bit of technical jabber for people.
I'm actually surprised I didn't even realize the server even bothered guessing.
I think it's just something that I'm not exactly sure why it does that. I know that it does do that. Again, it's not client. People that get angry about 1X is they can't blame their internet or iRacing's netcode. It's client side, and if you got a 1X, you got a 1X, and deal with it. Now, and that's the same thing with slowdowns. Although I hate their slowdown logic, and frankly, I get mad at those every time. So I think it's because the off-track system uses dedicated lines, right? So at every, I'm trying to find a good example for this, and maybe we'll find a better corner that's got a little bit more defined off-track zones here. Let's see, we got plenty of time, not a lot going on. So this is probably a pretty good example here. So the off-track at most tracks would basically say that everything from here on out is off-track, or at other tracks it might be the green. Or some tracks might not be anything at all. But at the very least, there is some physical line you can see, and once you know where that line is, you're generally okay. The problem I have with slowdowns is that they'll just put some arbitrary checkbox out here, and if you make contact with it with your car, you get a slowdown, and because it's invisible, you can never really know where it is, and that's sort of by design.
And even worse than that too is the fact that you can get that time, and then if you, especially it's the worst when you're like in between a series of corners, and you try to take it at somewhat decent speed, it's just going to add more time to it. It is so frustrating. Right. Because essentially, to serve it properly, you have to pretty much slam on the brakes in the middle of a corner to get rid of it.
The slowdown system is not, I think at its core, it's not a bad idea. I just think it needs to be executed better. I think I don't even mind how the detection works. I think how you give the time back needs to be massively overhauled. And for those that don't like the 1X, I honestly think it's really a pretty decent system, all things considered. There are definitely tracks that are bad. Spa, Coda are two of the ones. I think turf should be considered part of the racetrack, in my opinion, and that would really solve 99% of complaints about that system. But other than that, I think the incident system as a whole is sort of what keeps iRacing together as a whole and keeps the racing competitive. So good to see that as we see Layton now come around for the 26th lap out of an estimated 30. 7 minutes and 45 seconds left to go. And again, the beautiful line through Maggots and Beckett's. You can definitely count on him making this a very photogenic run down through here.
Yeah, what I'd love to see someone do, it'd be kind of hard, is just to take, the different shots we've had of him and go through there and just kind of like lay them on top of one another just to see how consistent his line has been through there.
Well, probably very, be my guess. But what's interesting is that he ran a flyer at the beginning of the race. His best lap is a 2-minute 9:04 second lap. He's only running about 2 seconds off of that, which is a lot more than everyone else is running off their best time. So he's definitely dropped a lot more off pace. And I wonder if he's got pace to run 2-minute laps every single lap, but is conserving fuel, because everyone else is pretty much running their terminal velocity or very close to it. Shrivastava, Brew, and even guys like Robert Porter are not too far off of where they are or where they were at their fastest. So I think they're kind of running as fast as they can.
And here's just to talk about Layton's consistency again. The last 3 laps were all just about 202.6 within hundredths of a second of one another.
That's amazing. I mean, that's hard to do. At a track this big, this is a almost 6-kilometer circuit, 3.7 or so miles. This is a very large track, and 100th of a second is literally indistinguishable from corner to corner in terms of lap time. I mean, so basically, if you have a 10-corner track and you're losing a 1/10 of a second, which is basically the speed of a snap, and you lose that every corner, you're off by a second. So the fact that he's only off by a couple hundredths over an 18-turn, 6-kilometer track, think about how perfect you have to be to line that up every lap.
Yeah, it is really insane. Again, I think this is just due to the fact that he's leading the race by such a massive margin, has not made a single mistake this race so far, and just taking off consistently fast laps.
Just over 5 minutes to go. We'll jump back to third place Francois Brew, who's been in a very heavy Mercedes. And he's had a pretty good day. The sun is going down. The sun's in the eyes a little bit of Francois Brew. And having a decent day. Third and running third. So sort of running where we'd expect.
Yeah, and was starting to make some time back up on Shrivastava. Was actually just a hair quicker last lap through, but has not really been making any decent inroads on Shrivastava. So it's looking that the order might remain unless Mark does make a mistake in the closing laps, which is definitely seen time and time again in the later parts of the race. Somehow or another, a lot of drivers end up making mistakes and losing out quite a few spots.
Yeah, the only driver that has not made some sort of major mistake or spin today has been Thomas Layton. That's sort of what has accumulated this lead on top of him already having more pace than the rest of the drivers. Shrivastava's only about 3/10 off of Layton right now, but again, running pretty similar lap times to those in behind him. So less than 5 minutes to go. That will complete lap number 27, put us on lap number 28. So about 3 laps left here for the DC Region SCCA iRacing League round number 3. Be headed to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, Road America next Friday night. So excited for that track, not only in the sim world, but I get to go there in September for Grid Life Touring Cup, and I am basically going to rent out an Airbnb for an entire week and spend my life there because I'm so excited about that track.
Have you already found accommodations yet?
On the what?
Accommodations.
Oh, I thought you said combination. I was like, oh, a combination of what? No, I have not. I have not looked yet. Partially because Airbnb is so kind of off kilter with all the COVID stuff, so it's a little tricky. At the very least, I might actually consider camping there for a reasonably long time because I think their facilities are pretty decent, and camping at a racetrack just sounds like so much fun, especially when you could do it basically in the woods. I'm really excited about. I'm also considering going to the SCCA's runoffs, which will be there in October, and the runoffs will be at Road America this season. And even though it may not be a spectator event, I'm not sure what the decision has been on that. I still might be able to finagle my way in. Given all my work with the esports stuff, I'm going to try to use all the connections I have to get myself in there because I would love to spend an entire weekend with just my camera, just walking through the forest and taking shots.
Not to brag. Technically, I guess this is brag. We have a lot of connections.
Wow, look at you. Actually, you know what's really cool?
More so you than me, but like
Yeah.
in general.
If you head to our website at simtvbroadcasting.com, on the bottom of the front page, we have a list of some of the organizations and leagues that we've worked with, and I'm really proud to say we've been going strong for about 2.5 years, and the names that are on that list are really, really cool to look at now and say, how did we get here in 2.5 years? We've got, of course, our great partnership with the DC region SCCA, as well as the national level Sports Car Club of America, as well as we also work with DT World Challenge America on their Assetto Corsa Competizione platform. In the esports world, we still have upcoming plans with them heading into the fall. We also work with, of course, Grid Life, which has given us some amazing opportunities that we're very grateful for. Spec MX5 is another big racing series that we've done work for. There's just a lot of really cool names on that list, as well as some of the leagues that gave us our start here in the sim racing world. But getting connections, it's what it's all about, Finian, and we got a lot of them, as you mentioned, which is really nice, and they're all really awesome people. Gotta have all the ins. And actually, for those, again, this is more Grid Life related content, but next week I will be at Autobahn Country Club Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'll be there covering the Grid Life Touring Cup. So if you're interested in that, make sure you head over to our website to learn more about that. And I'm setting up a blog sort of situation that basically will have more content on all the racing things that I visit in 2020. So should have some more professional written motorsports coverage over there in the coming weeks. So Thomas Layton, 2 laps to go here, finishing in the number 7 car. Mark Shrivastava 38 seconds back. No major battles on the racetrack right now, although Shrivastava was off pace, and that did reel in Bruce slightly, 3.9 from 3rd to 2nd.
Yeah, Kurs, he was behind Harry Horning. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with him losing that much time. But yeah, Bruce starting to close in. This is what we're talking about again with the later stages of the race. Anything can happen if you make one mistake. It's going to cost you a lot, especially with Brew being only 3.7 seconds back.
Layton comes down the hill through Stowe and into Club. And for Thomas Layton, this brightly colored RGB, I'm going to say it, Ferrari 488 is going to come out of the final 18th corner, and he will pick up the white flag this time through. So one more lap around with 50 seconds left on the clock. Layton comes on through, and it's about 6 kilometers around until he can pick up this checkered flag.
Yeah, again, just has to be doing pretty much the same thing he's been doing this entire race, and he's got a lot of time to play with this. Well, 38 seconds back to Mark Shrivastava.
Effectively, that's well over a quarter of a lap at this point as Layton works his way through the loop section, of course, and heads through or towards Brooklands. Now you see him coming down the very long straight underneath the bridge, and it's quiet racetrack behind him, quiet racetrack in front of him. Only 8 drivers remaining around these 6 kilometers, and way in the background you see that is Colin Dahner's Ferrari. But Road America next week, we should see an increase in the car count once again. And with that, will come a pretty interesting format there. 2 times 25 minutes. So again, we're going back to our sprint racing next week, which will be really interesting. So white flag still in the air for Layton as he heads through Cops for the final time. Going to drag the tires out on corner exit. No drama for the 7 car tonight.
Yeah, so he's been doing a fantastic job, especially through this section. We've been talking about him just nailing. Look at the line he's been nailing perfectly. Oddly satisfying.
It's just such a beautiful, and it's a really great camera shot that you set up for me down there as we head now towards Stowe and into Club to complete this race. But for Layton, a really impressive run, and it's sort of a shame he didn't have as much competition as we were hoping for. I'd like to have seen a couple other drivers up at the front battling for position and keeping Layton on his toes, maybe forcing him to make a mistake. But no mistakes for Thomas Layton. And a drama-free race at the DC Region SCCA iRacing League. That will be a checkered flag for Thomas Layton. 30 perfect laps at Silverstone Circuit. He picks up a win in round number 3. And 41 seconds behind him is Mark Shrivastava. Not a perfect round of racing, but just good enough for a 2nd place. Yeah. Francois Brew is closing, though, as they head down towards Stowe.
Yeah, I'm not sure this Shrivastava is close on fuel, or he's just starting to really run some slow times, but it's going to get really too close for comfort here as they head through Stowe for the final time.
He's really off pace, and he's dangled the carrot in front of Francois Brou. We'll see if he will jump down into Club and just send it, but he's about 15 car lengths back, not going to be close enough. Final couple of corners, Brou tries to close the gap. He's within a car length now as they come back for second, takes a swipe at him, can't do it. Shrivastava, final corner, checkered flag there. Second place, Shrivastava by 3 car lengths over Francois Brou in the 69. That was a little bit tighter than it was looking to be, as Andrew Kessel is going to bring it home in 4th in the number 5 car.
Yeah, and that was really interesting to see there. I think for Francois, just one more lap, and he would have probably had Shrivastava, but for Kessel now heading through Club for the final time, back onto the front straight, will finish in 4th.
And Chad Griffith in the number 11 car started this race up in the 4th spot. And we'll come on back. I think that's the checkered flag. It looks like it. Or is he all the way back in? No, that is. He's coming home in 5th place. We'll end the race there. So looking down from high above, a quiet evening here. But driver focus for Thomas Layton brings home the race win. 42 seconds, almost 43, back to Mark Shrivastava. We'll be back in just a minute to talk to your race winner. Stay with us. Welcome back live to Sim TV in the WDCR SCCA iRacing League, round number 3 from Silverstone Circuit. Here now with our second place finisher, Mark Shrivastava, in the number 87. Started your race up in second. You finished there, Mark, and Layton definitely had the pace tonight, pulled away, but it got a little bit tight there at the end with Francois Brou. Some damage to that car, slowing you down. Walk us through your chase on with Layton and having to hold off third place Brou and Kessel earlier when they were battling for position.
Yeah, I made a last-minute decision coming into the session to take the BMW. I wasn't sure if the Ferrari could make it. I knew the Ferrari was faster in my testing, like 6 or 7 tenths faster a lap. Decided to take the BMW. I think it was comfortable to drive, and I think it was going to be easier to do the full run. Took the BMW anyway, was able to get in second, and then I think the first couple laps following Tommy, I think I was actually a little bit faster through some of the more rhythm sections, like the rhythm left-right section in the back and the sweepers. And I thought maybe if I push a little bit, I can give him some pressure and I can stay with him in the draft. As soon as I started pushing, I started collecting cut penalties, got myself frustrated, put the car on the wall, and just tried to hold on for second from there.
This racetrack very wide and has a lot of high-speed corners, but next week we head to Road America on Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, which is in places a lot narrower and definitely very point and shoot, going back to our sprint race format for next week. So how do you think you're going to run there, and are you going to run the same vehicle next week as well?
I'm going to go back to the Ferrari. I know the Ferrari has a lot better power coming out of the digs, especially because in the Ferrari you get choice in gear ratios. In Sonoma we used, at least I used the short ratio, and that was helping a lot out of the corner exits. So I'll be back in the Ferrari next week.
All right, Mark. Hey, thanks for talking to us. Congrats on a P2. Second place after starting in second after 60 minutes at Silverstone Circuit. Mark, thanks so much. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week. And we'll try to see if we can get Tom Layton again. Hey, Tom, you got a copy?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
I sure can, Tom. Well, for you, relatively uneventful night tonight. You led all 30 laps from the drop of the green flag. We were admiring your perfect lines. We're actually looking at it right now through Meggett's and Beckett's. Absolutely perfect through there. It was a sight to behold. But just walk us through your night. Probably a pretty calming night. A lot of practice out there for you. Almost like a time trial out front by 43 seconds over Shrivastava. Just walk us through your night.
Yeah, thank you. I had pretty good pace all through practice this week. So I knew that if I could just come into the race and be consistent, it was going to end pretty well. So we got off to a start, and Mark just kind of dropped back. I think he made some mistakes. I think he mentioned he had 15 seconds of track cut penalties, which is kind of unfortunate. So after I saw him drop back, I was just trying to stay consistent, not push the tires too hard. I did some testing earlier in the week, and my setting would be, it would get pretty loose toward the end of the race. So my goal was to just conserve fuel and conserve tires, and it worked out for me.
So next week at Road America, no conserving fuel or tires, really. It's two very short sprint races at the National Park of Speed. Do you approach that race a lot differently from a driving perspective when you're pushing a little bit harder? And I think you've been in the Ferrari a bunch. Are you going to continue to run that Ferrari next week at Road America?
Yeah, I think the setup I've got for the Ferrari, I mean, it's a little loose, a little tough to drive, but it's fast. And I don't see anything really changing between here and Road America. So I'm going to stick with it, and I'm looking forward to having a race where there's no conserving fuel, no conserving tires, just go at it for 25 minutes.
All right, Tom. Hey, nice run tonight. First to first, 30 laps led. We'll see you next week at Road America.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, moving on now to Francois Brou, finished third place tonight in the number 69 Mercedes, the only AMG GT platform out there. Francois, great race tonight. Almost ran down Travasova there at the end. Take us through your night and your run and your battle with Andrew Kessel, which took the majority of the race to dispatch him before you had a chance to try to run down Mark.
Hello, guys. It's been a long time for me being in that place. At the beginning, I got surprised by the start. I didn't know how it was working. So I got surprised. I wasn't ready, so I lost 2 places to Andrew and Chad. And then after that, I didn't want to take any risk. I said it's a long race, so I started staying behind them. But I saw Mark and Tom going away, so I played a patient game. I was faster, but I said, okay, I'm saving fuel at least for the first third of the race, and I had a map anyway to how I would manage my fuel. I knew I would finish it by switching between map 3 and map 2, so I was okay. But then at one point, I passed Chad, and I say bye-bye, and then Andrew gave me a little bit more work, but I was also wanted to pass him, and he was nice to let me go at one point. And then we tried to catch Mark. I did extra going off-road a little bit, and then 2 or 3 seconds lost. Then I had to battle to go back to Mark, and then I had my map 3 and some reserve in gas. So I started pounding lap after lap, making little mistake because I was overdoing it. But at the end, I was reeling him in and then reeling him in, and I was getting faster, and then I gave everything I had for the last 3 laps. I did my best lap over there, but it was too short. So little mistake. It's always a matter of seconds that you're losing here and there. But it was really fun, and I'm glad for me. It's an accomplishment for quite some time that I've been in the back or in the middle of the field. Tonight, I would say I wasn't the nail for once.
Well, a third place is a podium for you, Francois. We head next week to Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, a very point-and-shoot track. Very, very fast out there. Are you going to stick with the Mercedes next week as we head to the 4-mile National Park of Speed?
I think the Mercedes, since the new patch, everybody kind of didn't give any love anymore for the Mercedes, losing some power, and the other guys, the other cars has been kind of well balanced, a little bit better than Mercedes. But I'm going to still keep to my first love, the Mercedes, and I'm going to do the whole season with it. And as we could see tonight, it wasn't that bad at all. So I'll keep on running it.
All right, well, podium tonight. Good luck to you next week, Francois, at Road America. We'll see you there. We'll hopefully see you again in podium spot or maybe even in victory lane. Thanks for talking, Francois. Good to talk to you. We'll see you later.
Very much, guys. Thank you.
Well, it looks like that'll do it for the interviews tonight. A lot of really solid racing throughout the field. Also, a lot of attrition in a pretty small field. Not something I expected here, Finian, but sometimes that's the way things go.
Yeah, and again, this is, I would consider a fairly challenging circuit as well, especially, we saw a lot of the wrecks at the beginning of the race with some colder tires, and also, in general, I think once guys are getting up to speed, but once we got through the majority of the race, everyone pretty much made it to the finish unharmed, so nice to see there. But yeah, decent race, especially just fun to see these guys just lap around this circuit.
So next week, it'll be the National Park of Speed in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Road America, the 4-mile and 14-turn road course, which is sure to bring a lot of smiles to our faces at a beautiful new reconstruction of it here in iRacing. Next stream you're going to see will be tomorrow night, will be the Outsider Racing League from Daytona. And then Sunday afternoon, our matinee here on SimTV, the SRF Weekend Warriors from Interlagos. The first time we've ever seen that track on SimTV. Going to be a really interesting weekend of racing. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful night.